Today, we have one of my favorite Broadway principals on the podcast. She is one of my old friends from Neverland who has also been in three other Broadway shows, including Wicked, Cher, and Jekyll and Hyde. Everyone, welcome to Take a Bow, Teal Wicks.
Hello. Hi, hi, hi.
Hey! Oh my gosh.
Hey.
I'm so excited. Long time no see. So glad that we're able to catch up. This is so fun. I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for so long, and so I'm happy that we were able to do this.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so
Yes.
happy to be here. It's so nice to see your face.
I know. It's weird
Ah,
that we're in this virtual space, but it's better than nothing, right?
yeah, it is better than
Um,
nothing.
yeah, for sure. Well, the way I usually like to start these episodes is kind of asking people, how they got started and like what inspired them to join the theater and tell
Mm,
stories.
yeah, love it.
Yeah.
All
What
right.
what was your
I'll
experience?
go. Okay, I'll go. So I grew up in Sacramento, California, which whatever, that doesn't really matter, but it was a good town to grow up because there's a lot of local arts.
Mhm.
They have good, good theater. They have a lot of like good small town, very, very basic kids theater. They have like Sacramento Music Circus and some other semi-professional theaters, and then a lot of the national tours will come through. So it's a really nice art city, and my parents really like just taking me to arts. They love anything from like outdoor concerts to, the ballet to all the shows coming through to like the high school doing West Side Story, all that sort of stuff.
Oh.
So just from an early age, they just kind of took me to all these things, and I really, I don't, it's so weird. At a very early age, I think I just understood, I even if I didn't understand, but I had an appreciation. Oh my gosh, I had an appreciation for like live performance, whether it was a band or like just a street performer doing something on the street or in a theater. And I remember for one, when I was little, the movie Annie, when
Yeah.
that came out, I was obsessed with it. It's a bunch of kids singing and dancing, and you're like, "What?" And as a kid, you're like, "That what are they doing? I wanna be them." Um, so that kind of just I loved music, and I loved that sort of theatricality, and then I saw the touring production of Peter Pan, which I think was starring Kathy Rigby at that time. I don't know, I forget how old I was, but I was still fairly young,
Mhm.
maybe like 9 or 10 or something, and we went to see it, and I remember that being the first time being in a theater and watching a show and just being obsessed with it and thinking, "I want to be up there. I want to get up on that stage, and I wanna do that, like, with people in the audience and there's a orchestra and just the whole everything about live theater." That moment was a huge moment for me, and I just loved it. And that was at least the sparking my interest in it, and my parents and I was always singing, and my grandmother had been a choir teacher and a music teacher, and she played the piano, and from an early age, they were kind of like, "Oh, she actually doesn't sound bad for a kid."
Oh,
You know? There's some kids who sing and you're like, bless their hearts," but that's not gonna happen,
right.
and then there's ones where you're like, "Wow, you're actually singing in tune," and, "Oh, wow, that actually is kinda pleasant to listen to." So, I just would be singing whenever I wanted to, and I was kind of a shy kid, but anytime I would start singing or music came on, I would sort of come alive and be confident, and
Oh,
people would stop and listen and pay attention, and I was kinda like, "Oh, this is kinda cool. How do I do this?" And,
right.
so it was just a wait, sorry, hold somebody was calling me, and I was like, "What's happening?"
You're good.
Um Yeah, and so they just when expressed interest in doing theater, or whether it was at school or at the small regional things, my parents were like, "Yeah, go do, yeah, go, 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 go do." And also, when
Oh.
I was really little, when I was like a kid, I took ballet class and also
Mhm.
gymnastics, and I was actually really good at ballet. So I started doing that for a while until I think I was like 11, and then I started playing soccer.
Oh,
And that was the end of my ballet career.
that's amazing. And then what so did you do soccer and then you just, like, got back into theater at a later, like,
No, I
date?
did soccer and
Or you
theater.
did
So I would
both?
do
Wow.
yeah, I would found a way to do both, and,
Wow.
my parents would drive me around to all the things, and then when I had a car and had my license, I drove myself to all the things, and I did the
That's
plays at
incredible.
school and did a little bit of the regional theater, the small town. I never did, like, the
Mhm.
fancy paying gigs in Sacramento. I did the most basic, almost everybody who auditions gets in sort of shows, but it just it I was in the world, just being in the world of, like, what it means to go to rehearsal and be with a
Right.
cast and in a company, and I was just obsessed. I just loved it, and when college time came around, I knew I wanted to study drama. I didn't know if I would actually be good at it, but I was like, "At least I wanna try," and
Right.
I went to UC Irvine in Southern
Mhm.
California and just did drama there and sort of realized there that I actually was not bad and
Yeah.
figured stuff out. And
Wow.
yeah, and the UCI has I think they still have it, had they called it the New York Satellite Program, where each spring semester or quarter, we were on the quarter system, um, you you had to audition to get into this program and you would come to New York for like 6 weeks maybe, and we would stay here and we'd take classes. We had to, like, take dance classes, we had master classes through the school, we had to go on so many auditions and all of this sort of stuff, and I did it twice, and I just fell in love with New York, and sort of that was when I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna move to New York, like, I love this city, and I think I can actually do this," and so when I
Yeah.
graduated, I moved out here and
That's
pursued my
awesome.
Broadway dreams.
So when you moved out here, did you have a job or were you just, like,
Oh,
coming out here to audition?
oh, no. I was just
Oh,
coming out
good.
here to live, just to
To live.
live my
Oh my
life,
god.
be young, and be
And
in
you
New York
haven't looked back.
City. I haven't looked back.
Look at you, look at where you are today. Here you are, the star on Broadway that you are. That's amazing. So, you're would you say, like, your first professional gig then, if you weren't doing, like, the crazy things at Sacramento, would you say that it was the tour of Jekyll and Hyde?
No, my first professional gig was, a production of Pippin at Goodspeed Opera House
Oh, of course.
that
Oh my god.
then also did a mini tour. So
Yes.
that job was like I that job was my first time ever being paid as a
Uh-huh.
actor. I got my equity card. I got
Yeah.
my agents because they came to the agents I'm still with because they were representing a few people in the cast. And it was also my first tour. And
Wow.
so it was a lot of firsts, and it was such an amazing company of people and just had the best time. And Pippin's just such a fun show,
I know,
as you know.
I had no idea that you were in Pippin, like, that you've been in a production of it, and, like, when I saw that you played Catherine, I was like, "Wait, I wanna see that now."
I
Why
mean,
haven't Go ahead.
that was like 2 decades ago, but yeah,
You
I
could
don't think
still
there's
do it.
any. Oh, yeah, I know I could still do it, yeah, but I don't think
Yeah.
there's any. I think it was so long ago that I don't think there's any footage that exists in the
Uh,
world, so
yeah, like a
if it's a
VHS, if that's what it's called. No, I'm just kidding.
rude,
No, I'm
Eli,
just
rude.
kidding. No, it just I don't know. We'll see. Maybe
I
we
know.
can do some digging. But that's hilarious. Yeah, Pippin. I was just like blown away when I saw that. Anyways, that's so fun. I have to ask you for like people listening, whether they're going through their first professional gig or whatever they're doing, and they don't have a manager, like
Mm,
or an agent, like what is that process like? And like, is there what are some of the difficulties, whether it's like with contract negotiations and just finding that audition and stuff like that? Like, how could you help them?
yeah. Well, unfortunately, I'm not gonna be super helpful because
Yeah.
I'm the, like I was I my start in this business was very much being in the right place at the right time
Hmm.
and having the right person see me, and a lot of things just sort of just really lined up and very much just luck, luck, luck. Um, because I was going, on all of the chorus calls and all of that, um but I so when I got Pippin, I didn't have representation yet, but it was my first job. So I didn't have any other jobs before then, which I had to negotiate contracts, and I would have been
Uh,
terrible because I'm honestly of the like, I'm just happy to do it. Oh my
right.
God. Yes. Thank you for wanting me. I'll do it for food. Just feed
Right.
me. Um,
Yes.
you know? Um, so I don't even
That's
remember. And
amazing.
luckily when I got Pippin, the casting director was very, very kind to me. I can't even remember who it was. I feel really bad. It's probably somebody who I still like see. Um, was very, very kind and was very much like this. I know this is your first thing. This is normal. This is what it was. And and I had a principal contract. So it was also kind of
Mhm.
like a big deal. So it just, everything in that contract just seemed amazing. I was like,
Yeah.
this is amazing. This is amazing. Um, but I would, if I had to give advice, because even though I have representation and they're amazing and all of that, a lot of we still have to sort of be aware of what we want to do and what we believe we are worth and all of that. And I would say the it would be good to understand your finances, your financial life situation enough to know, what do I need to make, what how much money do I need to make to be able to like still pay rent and eat and travel expenses and all of that sort of stuff. What's that sort of range? What's your baseline? So,
Mm.
if some things, uh, if there's an option to negotiate, you can probably try to be like, well, I need at least this. And you don't have to go crazy high or crazy or low ball yourself. Um, but also, you just sort of have to have, I think, a good idea of what you want to do. I mean, because there's a
Mhm.
lot of times that I'm sure you probably as well have projects have sort of come up or auditions and you're like, "Ah, I don't really actually love this role. I don't actually really love this show. I don't know about it, but I desperately need a job. Do I just say yes because I need something?"
Right.
And you don't always have to say yes. I mean, there are times where maybe you're like, "I just need a job, so anything that pays me, I'll do it." But then there's also times that we can convince ourselves that we have to have a job, and any job we're just lucky to have, and it's true, but it's also we are artistic human beings who have value and worth, and there are some things that may not actually be right, and we should have the courage to say, "No, I don't think that's right," because it could be perfect for someone else, you know?
Mhm.
So, you gotta stay true to yourself and make sure that you're doing things that um, give you life, for lack of
Yeah.
a better word. Whether it's just pure survival life or like artistic life or whatever. Um, yeah, and it just in my career when I sort of realized the power of saying no to things, it
Mm.
really shifted a lot of stuff. Because then I felt any project that I was doing or going after, I actually went after it with my whole heart rather than like begrudgingly.
Oh. Yeah, 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 and I think that's an important, like, message, like, because if you're
Okay.
not gonna if you can't go all in, then you probably shouldn't be doing it, like, you can't half-ass it, you know?
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to you have to go all in if you really want something, and that's when you put your best work forward, and that's when you put your
Yeah.
best self forward, to truly show your self-worth and everything like that, so that's really important for sure. Talk to me about Jekyll and Hyde because I think it's really cool that, you went on tour with it and then you went to Broadway with it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Talk to me about that experience and talk to me about the shift from, like, tour to Broadway and, like, how it happened.
Right. Well, with Jekyll and Hyde, the plan for it was always do a tour and we're moving to Broadway. Like Broadway was always like, we're going to
Oh,
Broadway, we're going to
okay.
Broadway, we're going to Broadway. It's just our Broadway run was a lot shorter than anyone
Yeah,
had anticipated, and we
right.
actually ended up going into a different theater. I think
Mm.
originally our Broadway plan was to go into the Richard Rodgers, 'cause this was, pre-Hamilton,
Oh,
so
yeah,
that theater was available.
always the
Uh,
thing.
but then when we were doing tour, the Marquee Theater, I guess, can't be was available,
Oh.
like, it was only a couple weeks before the Richard Rodgers one, and then our producers were like, "We're gonna go to the Marquee." And the I mean, for anybody out there, I don't know how savvy or how much in the business people are or whatever or know these theaters, but the Richard Rodgers and the Marquis are very, very different theaters. Very different amount of seats, very different stages, very different setup, very,
Mm,
very different. So that was just kind of that was sort of the unknown, unexpected thing. And not to say that if we were in the Richard Rodgers, we would have had a longer run of the show, but
right.
I think it just would have been a little bit. It's just like I think our show would have fit better in that theater. Um,
Well, I'm
anyways,
curious, like,
yeah.
if you if you already knew, like, you were gonna go to Broadway and everything, and, like, you're staging the show, like, are you, like, planning even though you're going on tour right now, are you planning to, like, stage it for the Broadway theater?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Pretty much our rehearsals and our well, I guess our tech was because the set and everything that was built for it was built for Broadway, but then also then was going to go on tour.
sure.
It was, and I guess that made it so that we could fit into any theater that was open on Broadway because we had
Mm.
to fit the show into all these different theaters across the US. Um,
Right.
but yeah, and I think we had a little bit of, I think, pre-Broadway rehearsals, but it wasn't a lot.
Oh,
It was mostly just tech. It might have been like a week of rehearsals, refining things, um, maybe adding things that we couldn't quite do on tour because of just the logistics and technical sort of restraints of touring houses.
sure.
We changed a little choreography
Mhm.
but I think more or less the set was the same. And oh, I got a new costume. I got a new
Yes.
dress, which was so nice. They were like, "Oh, you're getting a new dress for Broadway, an extra dress." I was like, "Oh,
Broadway.
thank you, the Broadway." Um,
That's
so
amazing.
it was minor. It wasn't like completely like rehauling the show. I think
Sure.
if we had rehearsals other than just, like, tech and previews, it was probably, like, a week and then the sort of usual sort of week of tech and then the preview process, and yeah,
It's insane.
yeah, I know. It was interesting, though, like, being on tour because there were cities that they loved us. They loved our show, and then there were cities where they were like, "Mm-mm, we
What
don't
is
what's
happening?
happening? Why is he so upset?"
Oh, no. That's crazy. I know, I feel like that is one of those shows where it's just like, you either love it or you just, like, you don't it
Yeah.
just goes over your head, you know?
Yeah, it totally is, and I think sometimes those shows are good, I mean, I sometimes I think it's good to have a show that has very strong opinions about it.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a mix of good and bad
Mhm.
rather than just bad, but, shows that are sort of, like, in the middle state that people are like, "Yeah, I mean, it's good." They just, people forget about those shows eventually. They don't have
Yeah.
longevity, and Jekyll and Hyde has its fan base is hardcore. Like the Jekyll and Hyde fans are
Yeah.
fans.
Yeah, for sure, and then the ones who are not just like,
Yeah, they are
absolutely don't
hardcore not.
how dare you even bring that up in my presence,
Yeah,
like,
they're like, "Do not say,
it's
don't even speak
hilarious.
those words."
Right. I love it. Well, so talk to me about, like, what it was. So you're on tour with it, and then you make your Broadway debut, and you're on a Broadway stage, and you're performing. Like, what was that feeling to just, like, finally have, like, everything that you've been working for, like, in college and everything, you're doing it. You made it
Oh
to the
yeah.
stage.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, well, because my Broadway debut was in Wicked.
Yeah.
Was Yeah, which was um very
Wait, I
exciting
didn't
because
even realize. Okay, go
no,
ahead.
that's okay. No, that's okay. So I'm here. I'm here to help. I'm
Yes.
here to
Wait,
tell you.
that's even cooler that, like, your Broadway debut was in Wicked, but we'll get to
Okay.
that.
Um, because I it was amazing because with
Yeah.
Wicked I had done two California companies.
Right.
I had moved to New York. I always laugh because like I moved to New York, did the big move, left California to like pursue my Broadway dreams, and had a few great regional gigs and whatnot, which were super fun. But my first uh, big contract, big role was Alphaba, and then I was in California.
Right.
So I did it in California for almost 2 years, I guess. I did Los Angeles and San Francisco companies. Um, and I had lots of ups and downs with it just because it's a really hard role and I had never done anything like that. And I was like, oh, this is what it means to carry a show and to do a role like this. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky. Um, and then when Broadway came, it was amazing because I was making my Broadway debut and for one, Wicked, which is a huge, huge show, and the role of Elphaba, which is such an iconic, like
Right.
superstar role. And I had already done it for a couple years, and I felt like I had really found who Elphaba was for me. Like I really felt like I had made my own stamp on it, and the fact that Wicked asked me, I had done it before, and they were like, "We would love you to do it on Broadway." That just felt like such confirmation of the work that I had done with
Right.
this role. And so when I went on Broadway, I went in feeling very confident and comfortable, which not a lot of people get, especially if their Broadway debut is like a new show and all of
Right.
that sort of stuff. And you don't know if the audiences are going to like it or blah, 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 blah. So it was, very much a sure thing. And I felt very, very confident. And the best, I remember my very first performance because Elphaba has, this great entrance. She comes basically upstage and just runs straight down center stage and literally stops and takes in this new world, this new adventure she's on. And I
Yes.
mean, I was like, this is wow. I
Yeah.
allowed myself a moment to actually stand there and absorb the fact that I was on Broadway, center stage on Broadway.
Right.
And a lot of times Elphaba gets entrance applause, and I had friends and family out in the audience too.
Um,
Um, you get entrance applause, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is happening. This is really
right?
happening." And then I was
That's
like, "Wait, you
amazing.
have to do your show. You have to actually do the show. You just started." So turn to the act, turn to your fellow castmates and act. And so
Mhm.
then I did. Yeah. So it was
Especially
pretty awesome.
especially in a theater like the Gershwin, like, that
Oh,
theater is, like it's huge,
it's
Like,
huge.
looking out in that, I feel like would be so intimidating, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's hilarious that, like,
But it
that's
felt
your Broadway
so
welcome.
good. I know it
Yeah,
really was my Broadway welcome.
that's
Ugh.
amazing. What a cool story. Did you ever think your Broadway debut, you would be, like, covered in green?
No.
No,
No, no, no.
I
I was
love
like,
it.
"Do you even know what I look like, you guys? Do you know what I look like?"
Oh my god, that's hilarious. I love it. I wanna talk about all the makeup and all of that stuff. Like, what was just like, that seems insane. How long did it take? Like, what was that even like? Did you, like I don't know, like, does your skin break out? Like, I feel like that'd be,
Oh,
like, a lot.
yeah, yeah, your skin goes through a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, they have built into I feel like because there's a few people, because Bach has to be painted as the Tin Man,
Right.
um, so I think they all have, like, facials and whatnot built into contracts because basically you have to you got
Gotta
it. You're putting your skin through a lot.
Yeah.
It's weird though, like I can't speak for everybody. For me, there was a point where my skin just got used to it. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing.
Oh.
Whatever. Okay, I can handle it. So thank you, skin, for being kind towards that. But yeah, but they
Yeah.
actually so with Wicked, they have makeup artists.
Mhm.
It's usual everybody has the wig people and I think I th and I think there's the wig gal does Glinda and Elphaba because Glinda goes on first, so they have time to get Glinda, and then comes to Elphaba because, like, Elphaba doesn't enter until at, like, 10, 10 minutes into the show, 15 minutes? I don't know, something like that.
Mhm.
So, basically, uh for me, it was I got at half hour, so I'd always have to get to the show earlier to do whatever I needed to do, whether I have to warm up or like, stretch, do my roll out on the roller and do all those sort of things. And then at half hour, you have to get in the chair to start getting painted green. And the makeup artist is like the makeup artists I have, they're amazing. They're such cool, wonderful, lovely people. We all just had the best time.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, they paint you green. It's your face, it's your neck, it's like your chest, it's like a little bit of your chest, and then your hands and your forearms.
Oh my god.
Because Elphaba has a green, like kind of a sheer green bodysuit that goes underneath all the costumes. So that makes her
Yeah.
arms green and like the rest of her chest kind of green. but they need the makeup to sort of transition. And they can do the makeup actually pretty quick, I think, because they need to be able, if something happens and they have to throw an alphabet on mid-show, I think they have the makeup down roughly. They can do it in like 5 minutes.
Mm.
And
Wow.
like, I mean, it's, just literally slapping it on and being like, don't look too close, people. But but yeah, I think they have to be able to do it like if like 5 minutes or less. But for Elphaba, I don't know. Every makeup artist is sort of different, but it usually would be like 15-20 minutes to get all green, and then because Elphaba starts out the makeup over the green is fairly plain, and then at intermission she gets glam because she's grown and all fancy, so she gets like more contour, she gets like
Ah,
lashes, she gets
wow.
glamified Elphaba. Yeah.
I
And
didn't even
then
know about that.
yeah. And then after a show, you basically take it all off. And everybody had their own thing. It was just easier to like jump in it because all the Alphabet dressing rooms I had a shower, so you just jump in the shower and just wash it all off. And you can tell if anybody goes on tour, and they go in a theater and the bathroom looks like it has like green in the grout. Wicked has been there.
You know Oh my god, that's hilarious. I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you that, like, I was like, are you finding, like, green, like, on your phone, like, on your everything, like, the Neverland sparkles? Like, those
Oh my
never
God, the
escaped, like, I was
Neverland sparkles.
e
I feel like I feel like sometime early in the beginning of the pandemic, I found all of a
Oh,
sudden
yeah.
Neverland, little confetti thing was just on the ground, and I was like,
Oh, yeah,
"What?
for
What
sure.
happened?"
Yeah,
Um,
those things stick to you.
yeah,
I
they
still
just
find them.
yeah,
I was curious, like, I feel like I don't know, I obviously I haven't done that, but I feel like the makeup in, like, Wicked would be, like, the same thing, you know?
it definitely, because I wear a lot of hats,
Oh, yeah.
so I had some hats that had
That's
almost
amazing.
like a permanent little green tinge.
Yes.
Um, but I don't know, I got really good at taking the green off, so it mostly come out. It was mostly like, yeah, like hats, um, would just have
Just
a little maybe like a green tint because a lot of times the green would sometimes get stuck in your hairline.
oh,
And sometimes you only want to scrub so hard because you're just gonna have to do it again. Like
yeah.
that's the thing for a two-show day, you have because Elphaba gets glammed in Act 2,
Oh,
you have to start with a fresh, clean slate at the top of the next show on a
yikes.
two-show day. So you can't just like walk around green. You gotta
Right.
take her off and then start all over again. But yeah, the green definitely like lingers. And I remember getting facials like months after I finished, maybe
Mm,
not months, but like a month after I finished Wicked or whatever, and still green would come out.
yeah,
You would
for
have to,
sure.
if you were going to get facials, you had to tell the facialist what was going on, or they would be like, what's going on with your skin?
There's greens, like,
There's just
stuff coming out
green
of your pores.
pores. You should
Yeah.
you should have this checked out.
Yeah. That's amazing. There's no blackheads, it's just green, you
Just
know?
green heads.
That's
Oh,
hilarious. Oh god, that's so disgusting, but amazing. Only on a theater podcast would we be talking about
I
this.
know.
That's hilarious. So, I wanna ask you, like, with Wicked, it's just I mean, you said it, like, you're belting your face off, you know, you're doing all these insane things, like, is there anything it's physically, vocally, and emotionally challenging and, like, and demanding, so, like, would there be something that you did for Wicked to, like, warm up and, like, just a routine that you would have that you wouldn't necessarily have for, like, a show like Neverland or for a show like
Mm,
something different?
yeah. Um,
Or even share, like, that
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, with Elphaba, I found with Elphaba that I actually needed to rest a lot.
Yeah,
Like, know
interesting.
that, sleep was my friend and water was my friend, and to not push myself, like, if my body was really tired, then my body was really tired, and maybe we weren't gonna, because as actors, we're like, I mean, not all of us, but like, sometimes we get really crazy about like because you have to look after your body, and so you're like, sometimes it's I gotta work out, I gotta work out, I gotta work out, or like I gotta massage, I gotta massage, I gotta massage, I gotta yoga, all the whatever. Everybody has their things,
Mm,
um, and I would really have to just pay attention to my body and be like, if I'm really tired, just like, no, you don't need to do any exercise today. But I would, I mean, before almost any show I do a little bit of a physical warm up. Maybe not in Neverland as much. Mary Berry didn't need to do a lot with her. Um,
I love it.
but but with almost any other show, I try to do a little bit of like I always do a vocal warm up.
Yeah.
Always, always, always. And with Wicked, I had very specific ones that I found with my voice teacher. Um, and I would always do a warm up in the shower because I was lucky enough with all the Elphabas to have a shower attached to my dressing room. So I'd usually get to the theater super early, do a warm up with the shower running so I could like steam and do all of that.
Mm,
Um, and then stretch and the foam roller was my biggest friend with Elphaba
yeah.
because like my back would get really, really weird from the weight of the costumes and also just I decided at some point my Elphaba was very like kind of hunched shoulders, which is not healthy to like
Yeah.
run around and do a show and try to sing with your like shoulders hunched. So it was a lot of trying to just get out those kinks
Oh,
and whatnot.
no.
So yeah, so basically like sleep, rest, and a lot of water was my biggest my savior with Alpha,
Interesting.
and also like vocal rest. Like a lot of
Yeah.
would be like I would wake up and I wouldn't speak like my husband would go off to work and I'd basically be nonverbal with him and not
Oh
really
my
make
god.
sounds until like an hour or 2 after I woke up, depending on how tired I
Wow.
was the night before, just to give time for like everything else to wake up before I use the little cords.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
craziness. Did that come with, like did that come with, like, time in the role and, like, learning that, like, through your body and, like, kind of examining that, or was that something that, like, you just, automatically did, like, when going into the role?
Oh, no, that was very much trial and error. I
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
because
I can't imagine.
when I first started with Elphaba, I didn't have a lot of discipline, like, I was
Right.
as annoying as this sounds, like, I was blessed with vocal cords that could sing this show, but I had never done anything that demanding consistently, so I was just doing the stuff I remember in LA, I used to drive to the theater and just sing along to the radio, and that was my vocal warm up.
Mhm.
And then I realized that was actually not really healthy, like, trying to, like, sing along to Aretha Franklin and Janis Joplin before I'm about
Oh
to
my
go do
gosh.
Elphaba. No, no, no. Don't do that, don't do that.
That's hilarious.
So, it was a lot of trial and error,
Yeah.
and just figuring out what worked and what didn't work. And
Especially.
sometimes, I made lots of mistakes, and I learned from those.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, right? Especially, like,
Yeah,
when you're, like, early on in the industry, like, that was your Broadway debut, like,
yeah,
it's different, like, I feel like you after Wicked, I'm sure you became self-aware and, like, really understood all of the stages that you had to go through in your next shows following that, so, like,
yeah.
yeah, so it makes sense, the whole trial and error thing, and, like, I'm sure that there's things that you even found during the Cher show, which was your most
Oh,
recently Broadway show, that you're
yeah,
like, "Oh, I never even realized that." Like, there's always your body's always changing, and you're always learning
yeah.
from it, so,
It's so true. Look at you,
yeah.
Eli. You know.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
I'm learning.
You little seasoned Broadway veteran.
Absolutely not. I let's talk about Neverland because I wanna let you
Neverland.
go soon. But yeah, I have to talk to you about Neverland because
Yeah.
that's the show that we did together, and it was just such a fun time. I wanna share my favorite memory, like, later, but,
Ooh,
going from, like, a show I mean, obviously, Wicked wasn't your like you didn't do Wicked and then Neverland, like, back to back,
right.
but, like, you kind of talked about how Wicked was you kinda talked about how Wicked was so demanding, and
Mhm.
then Mary Berry, you had some more time off stage, so, like, was there an adjustment period of, like, "Hmm, like, what should I do off stage?" Or, like, what do you kinda, like, enjoy that and just being with the cast and just, like, being able to chill and not have to stress about your performance as much?
Yeah. Good question. Mary Berry is interesting just because in the beginning, I had I had issues trying to figure her out. She was fun, but also she felt like she felt like one of the villains in the show,
Yeah.
and I've never really played like a straight up villain really, so I was like, "Okay, how do I wrap my brain around that?" And I'm sensitive, and Teal goes through life being like, "I just want everyone to like me. I just like everyone. I don't want the conflict." I don't know, like I'm so, let's
And
just
you're so
be
laid
nice and
back.
have fun. Yeah.
Yeah, she's so uptight.
So uptight. So I was kind of like, "Okay, how do I do this?" So it took me a while to be sort of at peace with what my role is,
Mhm.
just in the show. And then eventually I was like, okay, that's fine. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And luckily, like, I mean, we had such a great company of people. The
Yeah.
cast was just like, oh, so amazing. And it took me a minute once we got into production to figure out what to do with my time.
Mm.
Um, and so I would read, but I didn't wanna read too much because it's kinda takes me, like, out of the show. So I would just sort of, like, putz around and do stupid things. I don't even know what. But then there was one performance where I was upstairs, and it was before my last big scene in act 2, the Circus of Your Minds,
Yeah.
sequence, and because 'cause I'm dressed, so I don't have to do a costume change, so I don't have a dresser coming in and being like, "Okay, we're gonna do your costume change, do do do." And all of a sudden, I was, like, on my phone doing something stupid, and then all of a sudden I heard a line that is past my cue line to for when I usually go
Oh my
downstairs to then
god.
make my entrance.
Yeah.
So then I start running down the stairs, and then, like 4 flights of stairs at the Lunt-Fontanne Theater,
Yeah.
in a crazy dress and heels, running downstairs. I slip, twist my ankle, hear like a pop, and I'm like, "Oh, that didn't sound good," and basically hobble on stage and get seated just in time before the curtain goes up to reveal it's Tylee and I, like, sitting there, like, on a couch, supposed to be, like,
Mhm.
canoodling, and Barry comes in. Um, Anyways, and I make it out, and then I come off stage and was like, "I think I did something bad," and I look down and my ankle is, like, crazy swollen, and I barely
Yeah.
finished the show. Like, I didn't even do the bows because I couldn't walk. And I think was it John, one of the carpenters at the show, basically, like, carried me out the stage door after the
Oh.
show so I can get in a cab, and I was out of the show for, like, a week because I sprained my ankle so bad.
Yeah,
So
I remember
after
that.
Yeah, so after that, I stopped going upstairs. I stayed downstairs and just hung out off stage with the rest of the cast,
Interesting.
which was honestly the best thing ever because we would have so much fun. We then would, like, play games, like, Carolee
Yeah,
would, do, like,
bananagrams.
bananagrams, we had, like, a puzzle. Oh,
Yes.
we would, like, color. Then that was, like, the best thing ever, and I realized, I was like, "I just can't leave the stage. I have to stay off
Wow.
stage, and then I stay in the world, and I'm having more fun than being up in my dressing room all by myself,
Right.
playing on my phone, like, doing things that don't necessarily bring me joy."
Right.
Yeah, so
That's so
that's what I did.
fascinating, because I do like, that's kinda what I was, like, trying to allude to, and now that you say that, I do remember, like, there was a time where just, like, randomly you started popping up, like, you didn't always, like, pop up and, like,
Yeah,
hang out, but, like, whether you literally, like, watched the show in the wings or you were literally in, like, the men's or the quick change room, like,
yeah,
on stage left or whatever, like,
yeah,
there you were always, like, popping around, and I was like, this is so interesting, like, now she's doing this, and, like,
I
now she's
know.
always, like, here, and I love that, and it was so fun to, like, engage with you and everything like that, but I was like, now that you say that, I do remember there was a time where it just, like, wasn't like that, so that's
Yeah,
fascinating that your ankle was kind of the root of that.
I know, and yeah, I know, I was like, "Okay, that's the lesson. That was the lesson,
Yeah.
Teal." And then I loved, and I tell this anytime I talk about Finding Neverland, of course, no matter what people think about the show, whether they absolutely loved it or they didn't, but no matter what, they always talk about that the last bit with the play
Oh, yeah.
in the nursery and the glitter
The
tornado
glitter
and all of
part.
that. And I mean, just as soon as they start doing the song and everybody's acting out Peter Pan in the nursery, I think it's some of the most beautiful theater, and
Oh.
I'm almost 100% sure that every single night I stood off stage and watched it just because I loved it so much.
Aw.
And I was basically the only cast member in the show that wasn't in that number, so
Right.
I mean, even the dog was in that song. Um
Right. Even the dog. Well, you could have played the dog. Colin was originally supposed to play the dog. You should
I
have played the dog.
know. I know,
Then
I've been
we
like
all could have been it. Yeah.
we could all been in it. I could have just been like a random, like, mermaid in, like, the background, just, like, waving.
Yes. Oh my god,
Anyways,
that's
I just loved it.
hilarious.
So I would
Yeah,
watch that off stage as well.
yeah, there's so many things to love about that, like, especially because like, our set was just, like, so colorful as is, so
Mhm.
then, like, you add all of, like, the costumes and everything like that, and it's not like they were, like, flashy, they were all, like, simple things, but it was
Yeah.
just it all came together and meshed so beautifully that, like, it made it what it was,
Oh,
you
it was
know?
so pretty.
It was
It was
so
just
pretty.
so sweet and so I just loved it. So, yeah.
So yeah, one of my favorite memories of,
Uh-huh.
like, Neverland, especially with you, um, was the Broadway Baseball League.
Oh my
Because
god.
because we had a team, and we teamed up with, like, Fiddler, I wanna say. And it was just so funny because you need at least one girl to play in the league, and you were like, you know, like, "Should I do it?" Like, you kinda had that back and forth thing, and then you, like, finally did it, and it was Caroline, our wrangler, and then it was,
Mhm.
like, Laura Haywood,
Yeah. Yeah.
like so, like, we had 3 girls, which is great, and, like, usually, like, 1 or 2 of you would show up, and I think you literally played, like, the first game, and then you were just like, "Okay, that how do we do this b-ball?" Like, you know,
Oh,
like, you
yeah.
were like, "How do we do this? What do you need me to do? Like, do you want me to catch? Do you want me to, like, play this?" And they were like, "We'll push you. We'll shove with
Yeah.
love like we do on stage," you know, like,
Oh, yeah.
it was so funny, and I don't know why, like, that's always been a memory that's, like, stuck of mine of you, because I think I was just, like, so I just love when people, like, in theater try to play sports, and, like, that's,
Yeah.
like, one of my favorite things.
Well, like I said earlier, I played soccer. Like, I'm
Yeah.
an athletic person, but I am not a good hand-eye coordination person. So, like, I can run. I remember because I've done at least 2 Broadway softball leagues with Jekyll and Hyde
Uh-huh.
and with Finding Neverland. Um, 'Cause I remember with Wicked was obviously my first Broadway show, and they were talking about how that team is very, very, like, they're very particular with who
Yeah.
plays, so I was like, "Well, I probably shouldn't play anyways," but, like, cool, good to know. Because 'Cause I've never
Right.
played softball. I'm not good at it. I wish I was good, but I am not good just because
Mhm.
my hand, it's no good, but I'm really fast. So on a few of the teams, I had been a pinch runner for someone.
Yes.
'Cause I was like, "I can run real fast to that base." But yeah, so I'm athletic, just not with a baseball bat and a glove. I
Yeah.
ooh,
At
ooh.
least your story is, "Oh my god, I was running to a cue and not running to steal second base," you know,
Oh, I
that you
know.
sprained your
I mean,
ankle.
injuries. I
Yeah.
remember I remember one of the games, I don't it was probably in Neverland when we was doing Neverland. Somebody somebody threw the softball to the next base to get someone else and literally hit the person in the head who was
Oh,
running.
yeah.
I was like, "Oh." And was it with Finding Neverland, or maybe it was when I did Jekyll and Hyde, but one of our, the doormen, one of the like, the guy who ran the door,
Yeah.
like, blew his knee out completely playing in the Broadway softball league and
Oh,
then was, like,
wow.
out for a while because he just I mean, injuries happen. And people take it seriously, as you do. I mean,
Yeah.
we're competitive creatures,
Oh,
obviously, because
yeah.
well, or else we wouldn't succeed in this crazy business.
Right. For
But
sure.
did
I
you like
mean
it? Do you like softball? Like, are you
I mean, like, I d enjoy, like, playing it or whatever, but, like, watching it on TV or, like, even going to a
oh,
game, like, with baseball, it's just too slow for me. Like,
yeah,
performers were just, like, so what's next?
yeah,
Is it we're, like, always going, where our brains are always, like, doing stuff, and, like, it's just way too laid back for me, and I need something a little faster and more, like, keeping me engaged. I feel like
got it.
nowadays too, it's so unfortunate, especially because of the pandemic, like, our brains just, like, need constant stimulation
Oh, I know.
nowadays, and it's, like, not healthy, but, like, that's just the way it is, and baseball is not constant stimulation, so I think that also has something to do with it.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I hear you. I hear you.
yeah, sorry, theater folks, for the sports talk, for the sports ball,
Ooh, the
but
sports ball. Mhm.
yes, the sports ball, but I wanna get back, and I wanna talk about Cher, because
Oh,
that
sure.
was a show that you did most recently, and, like, that is one of the shows like, you played Cher, like, come on, like, that is one of the coolest things ever. I have to ask you, like, you played Cher and, like, you're working with Cher and she's watching you, like, was there ever a time where it was just like, "Oh my god, like, the person I'm playing is, like, right there and she's, like, watching me." Like,
Oh,
is that, like, nerve-wracking?
oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
talk to
yeah.
me about that.
Well, the first time that she came to see the show, it was when we were in Chicago doing the out of town tryout in Chicago, and we knew she was coming to see the show. We just didn't know exactly which show. Like she was coming, a certain weekend, and we're like, we don't know which show she's actually going to see.
Oh my god.
Um, and then luckily nobody told me. It wasn't until basically bows, and I was off stage with Stephanie and Michaela, my other sharers, and they're
Sure.
like, "Okay, we have something to tell you." And I was like, "Oh God, what? 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 We're closing. Oh my God, what's happening?
Oh my
I'm
god.
not going to Broadway. What is happening?" And
Yeah.
they're like, "We haven't. We didn't want to tell you before, but Cher actually just watched the show." And I was like, "Oh,
I'm
okay."
sorry.
I'm like, "Well, thank you for not telling me before because there's no way I would have been able to get through it."
Wow.
I'm also the type of performer that I don't really like to know who's out in the audience. Like
Yeah.
some people want to know and I don't. I mean, I'll
Mm-mm.
obviously know if I have like friends or family out there, but if there's, fancy industry people, I don't want to know because I just want to just do my show.
Right,
Um,
it really does impact your show. Like, you
yeah.
try to, like, do, like, more, and that doesn't always help your show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I noticed that with Neverland, and I got that to a point where I was just like, "Okay, if anyone's here, just stop. Just stop
Yeah.
telling me."
Just don't tell me. You can tell me
Yeah,
after the fact and that's fine.
right.
Because I like to approach every show as if it has the potential to be one of my best shows ever, and or just because it can be great in so many different ways.
Mhm.
Anyway, so yeah, so I was very, very, very grateful that they did not tell me. And then we all met her after the show. She like came, or maybe it was in between
Insanity.
shows. I don't remember, but she came. We all like gathered as a company
Yeah.
downstairs, and she came in. And I remember when I saw her for the first time, seeing her in person, I was like, "Oh, oh, yeah, that's what she looks like." Just and then when she was talking to us, I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, yep, that's how she sounds. That's how I've been trying to,
Yeah.
figure out, how she talks." And I was like, "Okay, I'm not, super off track. I'm kind of in line with how she actually speaks and how she actually is when she's not, not from because all my other reference points were YouTube
Videos,
videos of
yeah.
anything." Um, and so I was like, "Okay, cool. This is cool. This is cool." And then the next show that I did, knowing that she was in the audience, I spent the whole show wondering if she actually how she felt about the lines I was saying. I was like, "I wonder if she ever
Hmm.
actually said that. I wonder if she's sitting there saying like, 'I never said that to Sonny. I never said
Yeah.
anything like that,'" And all of that,
Right.
which was just weird, and it took me out of the show for sure. Because I was like, "I
Yeah.
wonder if she actually thinks that because I can't imagine watching somebody be you
Yeah,
on
literally.
stage and being like, "I don't do that," or like, "Oh, do I actually do that? Is that what I do?" Um, and it was a hard time for Cher because it took her a while before she was comfortable with watching the show.
Oh, I'm
She was just like,
sure.
"This is just too much. I didn't realize what it would be like to actually watch my life on stage." And even though she said yes to it and approved the script and all those things, watching it is something different.
Mhm.
So, yeah, but yeah, it was a trip. And then but as the journey went on, she would show up more and more and she'd have like one-on-ones with us shares and like there was a time when we were at the Neil Simon Theater when we were doing the Broadway run in previews and she like came up and like sat in my dressing room and we like chit-chatted and she like had her assistant pull up some like old Sonny and Cher comedy um bits that she really liked and she was like, "See, like this one," she's like, "I really like this joke. I kind of wish we had this joke in here instead." But it was like, "Okay, Cher, I can't do that. I can't change it.
Right.
You're Cher. Like if you want a different joke, you have to tell them."
Right.
But yeah, it was just interesting and seeing her and also as the journey went on, she would open herself up more to us. Like the very first time we all met her, she had a hat, she had sunglasses on, she had a little bit more like leather
Ah.
jacket, a little more dressed up. The next time the sunglasses were off, like she was wearing sunglasses inside the theater talking
Yeah.
to us. then she like the next time the sunglasses were off, the next time like the hat was gone, the next time her hair was like less done, she was in more casual clothes. Like she slowly would like
Wow.
peel away her armor. Um,
Yeah,
and so I take that as a sign that she was getting comfortable with us,
that's really cool.
hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, talk to me about the show itself and just, like, I don't know, cause it's like, yeah, it's like a show and it's like an autobiography and everything, but, like, it was kinda like a concert too,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, like, it's not your, like, traditional theater, and I think that's what was so cool about it because at the same time it was, like,
Yeah.
talk to me about just, like, how fun it was and how different it is compared to a show like Wicked and, like, Neverland and Jekyll and Hyde and all of that.
Yeah. It was, I mean, it was fun. It was also, I think, one of like the showiest,
Yeah,
showiest shows I've
like,
done just with like,
flashiest.
yeah, flashiest. That's the right word,
Yeah,
flashiest, because it's Cher and like the Bob Mackie costumes
of course.
um and getting to work with Bob Mackie. He is such a dream. Oh my God. It's so like, oh God, that was such a gift. So cool. And like just the appreciation of like I love how all of a sudden what is that like a sibilant S? I'm like appreciation.
Yeah.
I don't know why
You got it, though, you
said
got
that
it.
a few times,
Yeah.
but like the appreciation of clothing and just fully because it's share like the female body and like what clothing how it can like hide and highlight things and draw attention and just his love of just
Mm,
sparkle and glam and all of that and just feeling what it's like to wear dresses that are made out of very specific beading and they have literally a weight to them that you don't find in things that you buy at like Macy's or Target. um
right.
so it was a very flashy show which was difficult because it felt like, oh wait, trying to think about how to say this. It felt like there was presentational stuff, but then because it was also still a play or telling someone's behind the scenes of someone's life and a very complicated person who has had a lot of ups and downs and hardships, also trying to then be vulnerable and emotional and honest and all of that. So it was
Mm,
interesting figuring out how to go between those two things. But the key to that was it was very that's very Cher, so it actually
mhm.
helped, like, when you have to switch it on and just be, glamour push Cher and, like, a barely there outfit and sparkles and, like, deliver, like, all these, belt your face off and be a rock goddess, and
Right.
then switch to being, like, at home, a mom having a fight with her husband and those
Mm,
sort of things. So, it was interesting trying to do that, and I had a lot of fun. It was it was a journey and there were difficult times, but I look back on it and I really loved it. And I loved my character. I loved all my cast. And it was also because of the Share Show having sharing the role with two other
y
people. It We had a very strong, actually 4 other people, because Dee Rossioli, our standby for Star and Lady, she was there for all of anytime it was like a Share specific rehearsal or a Share work
mhm,
session with like our vocal coach or yeah, all of that. Dee was always there. So there were 4 of us. So we really created like a sisterhood bond that
that's
was
awesome.
also really lovely. Made it into were a little heightened and emotional just because, we are female actors and we can tend to be emotional, especially when we're stressed and exhausted. Um,
Sure.
but it just kind of it just made things feel a little extra heightened and a little extra meaningful because we were all going through it together and really trying to be there and supportive for each other and while trying to portray this huge iconic superstar that is as Cher is, she also sort of has her own world going on. So sometimes it felt like we were almost competing with her rather than trying
Ah,
to pay homage to her because it just her presence is just so there. And she was also doing her own tour, her concert tours and all of that. And so sometimes it felt like it was okay, the Cher show versus Cher herself.
right.
which was tricky to
Yeah.
navigate.
Fascinating. It's crazy. I don't know, like, just the like, even with, like, MJ, like, obviously, like, he's not alive and everything, but, like, now that that's on Broadway, like, all of these, like, biographical, like, shows, I feel like are
Mhm.
just so tricky and, like, I mean, all the shows I guess all shows on Broadway are, like, based on people, and based on stories and everything like that, but, like, when it's someone that's just so prevalent and is such a iconic and cultural, like, figure,
Yeah.
like, it's just I can't imagine how tricky it is, but, like, it's done in such a legitimate way, in such a beautiful way, in such a powerful way that, like, it's successful, and,
Yeah.
like, y'all made it to Broadway and you guys, like, killed it, like, and it
Oh,
was so
thanks.
cool. Yeah, and, like, honestly, like, a lot of people are saying, like, and it may be the case, like, 6 is, like, leading the way for Broadway, like,
Mm.
like, they're, like, the female led and everything like that, but, like, you guys kinda started that too, where,
Yeah.
you're 3, like, incredibly talented women, like, leading the way on Broadway and, like, sharing, like, a female story, like, and that I feel like y'all were the first, like, stepping ground for that, so
Oh,
kudos to you
nice.
guys. Yeah,
And then, yeah, and then we had Tina, Tina, like, basically came in, right?
right,
So it, like,
Tina.
kinda continues that, like, this huge iconic, w just a badass goddess, like, powerhouse lady, and telling
Absolutely.
that story, and yeah, it is exciting. I know I haven't seen 6 yet because I just whatever,
Oh my
life,
god.
because life, and then also now it's, like, one of the hottest tickets, so I was like, "Ah!" I missed my
Right.
window to see it,
So good.
I know, but it's so interesting. It is so interesting that the show is as huge a hit as it is. Not that it wouldn't be, but I know, like, from its origins, the fact that it is where it's at also means that the
Y
audiences are craving that sort of thing. And like you were saying, like, strong women telling strong stories. And it's also like real cool, fun, just music, just
Totally.
belting and singing and dancing for the heavens.
Absolutely. Well, Teal, I don't wanna take up too much more of your time, but this has been a blast, seriously, and catching up on all the things and talking about your career because we really haven't had a conversation like this before, so
I
I appreciate
know.
you coming on here and chatting with me.
I know. Why, but why would you want to have you were
I
little
know,
doing your own thing, living
I
your
totally, like, just did not get it when I was younger. I was just like, "What is happening? I'm working with, like, my best friend." Like, like, it's just
Yeah,
like, they're just a person, and, like, we still
yeah,
are, but, like, I didn't realize, like I didn't even watch Glee, like, my brother was like, "Oh my god, Matthew Morrison," and I was like, "Who?" Like,
yeah,
like, I was so, like,
yeah.
blinded to that because like, I was so young, so it's, like, cool to, like, now revisit that and be able to, like, "Oh, like, I'm curious to see how this happened and how this worked," and, like, being able to, like, learn and sponge more things, it's fascinating, so
I
I
think that's
appreciate you.
awesome. Oh my gosh, of
Yeah.
course. I think it's lovely. And yeah, and you were such, oh my gosh, you were such a joy. I remember when you joined the company, especially because Colin knew
Yes.
you, and he's like, "Oh, he's such a dream," and we were just like, "Oh, hey, hey," and you're just always you were such a positive, lovely little light popping
Oh,
all around the theater.
stop.
I mean,
I was
all you guys were like,
bouncing.
I can't now I wanna do a whole nother conversation with you, and I wanna know about you, and I wanna know
Oh
what
my
it's like
god.
being that young and having to be in a Broadway show. Because Lord, I was not ready
No
to be
joke.
on Broadway until I was on Broadway, which was when I was in my 20s, so I
Right.
needed I needed a few decades to figure out who I am and what I wanted to do.
Yeah, for sure. But, it's a whole thing, and to be doing it with, like, going to school and all of that and, doing we're all in this industry, so, like,
Yeah,
we do, like, multiple things at once, it's not like
yeah,
we're just doing the show, so, like, all of that stuff just factored in, like, I look back on it and I'm just like, "What was I, like, thinking?" But we
I know.
survived, we're here, and we're doing it.
We sure
So
are.
yeah, and, like, now we can look back and just be like, "That's so cool, like, good for us,"
Good for us. Good
So,
for
yeah.
us.
I know, like, we are pretty cool, like, we are okay, you
We
know?
are
People
okay.
do like us. There are people in the world that, like, yeah, they're cool. They're, like, a good person. It's crazy, especially, like, in a time where especially during the pandemic where it's like, everyone sucks, everyone's bad, no
Yeah,
one can stay inside, our president's a mess, like,
yeah,
you know, like, there's all these things, and, like, now to look back, it's like, yeah, no, the world will be okay.
yeah. We got enough
Yeah, we're
good-hearted, well-intentioned people in the world. We just
yeah,
need them to be in places of power to make decisions.
right.
That's a whole nother
That's
thing. But
another
yeah,
conversation.
I know.
We'll tune in for part 3. No, just kidding.
I know, right?
Um, thank you so much. I really just can't thank you enough. It was so good to see you and talk to you again. So thank you for coming on here.
Oh my gosh, it was
Oh
so
my god.
fun.
Yeah, and you have so much to take about for, so thanks for doing it on the
Yes,
podcast today.
taking the bow.
Yeah.